This is Joe Carpenter. Today is January 21st, 2022, and I am interviewing Joe Swift for the first time. This interview is taking place at the home of Joe Swift in Arlington, Texas. This interview is sponsored by the College of Liberal Arts and is part of the Maverick Veterans Voices Project. Thank you for allowing us in your home.
Thank you. You're welcome anytime.
Where are you from originally, and what can you tell me about your growing up?
Born and raised in Dallas, Texas. My growing up was nothing else but a blessed life. I had the greatest parents that God ever gave. Enjoyed everything I did. I had a father that worked at Procter & Gamble as a maintenance mechanic, but he never missed a practice. I played football, baseball, and track. And it didn't matter how long he worked, how many nights, hours, he was always there to practice. He never missed a game, never said a word to me, but I knew he was there. Mom was the same way. They supported me well, and I certainly have no complaints at all with my parents.
Where'd you go to high school?
North Dallas High School.
That's kind of a famous high school.
It is.
It
is. We're getting ready to have our 100th anniversary.
Is that right?
Yeah, it is. It was an interesting school. Of course, now it's a lot different.
Yeah.
But we still have our functions. In fact, next Saturday the 29th, we'll have our North Dallas breakfast where we open it to everybody, and we have over 100 people come in to have breakfast with us. And it's been a close-knit school, and I liked it very much.
That's great. Were you involved in ROTC in high school?
Absolutely. Day one, I started ROTC, high school, college, all the way through.
And what got you interested in ROTC?
I can never remember when I wasn't interested in the military in some way. I had thousands of straight pins stuck in my wall in my room with pictures of airplanes and tanks and what have you. I can never remember not wanting to be in the military.
And were there any family members in the military?
I had I had an uncle that was in World War I and another uncle that was in World War II. Neither of them saw any action. And the only one I got to talk to a lot was my second one that was in World War II. He stayed in England the whole time, but that was all.
And so you really don't have any idea how you became interested in the military. It was just
No,
just something that was.
It was just something that it's kind of like being a Christian. I've never remembered not being a Christian. I've never remembered not being involved with the military in some way. I wanted to be a pilot first, and I wanted to be a paratrooper. So I was fortunate enough to get to do both.
And where did you go to college?
I started out at a place called Arlington State College, which at the time was a junior college with didn't have the grades, nor did I have the funds to go to a big school. So thinking I'd go to Arlington State and pick up some time. And while I was there, my freshman year, they became a 4-year accredited university. And so I just stayed on.
And what was your major?
Business management.
Why'd you choose that major?
Well, it was the easiest one I could think of. I didn't want to do anything having to do with math. But
that's why we chose history.
I got trickled in on the management thing because I wanted to be in the service, and I figured management was a good way to go.
That makes sense. What activities were you involved in while you were at Arlington State College, other than ROTC?
I shot on the rifle team all 4 years. Actually 4 and a little bit more.
Was there anyone on the faculty who influenced you?
As far as the academic faculty, no, I don't remember a lot of them. And military faculty, yes, I remember Sergeant Symington was our he was of course a member of the ROTC cadre, but he was also the rifle team coach, and he was just a fantastic individual. Of course, Sergeant Harp, there was a lot of sergeants that were very memorable. Sergeant, I remember asking Sergeant one day, I said, do you have any kids? And he said, no. He said, adults have children, goats have kids. And I've tried to remember that the rest of my life. Sergeant Symington was just a great guy.
A little dry, sounds like, though.
He was great. Yeah, he was good. But he took us on all of our rifle team trips, and went down to New Orleans to shoot the Loyola Tulane invitational matches during Mardi Gras, and he was there.
Yeah.
Riding herd.
Over the kids, right?
Yeah, over the, you think of college students during Mardi Gras.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah. So what year did you graduate?
I managed the stuff 4 years into 4.5 years. So I actually graduated the class of 62, but I stayed an extra semester because me and statistics didn't get along too well.
Yeah.
So I stayed an extra semester to try again.
And were you commissioned upon graduation?
I was. I got commissioned the day I graduated, and moved out to the Benning School for Boys the next week.
So what was your branch and specialty then? I'm assuming infantry, but...
I specifically asked for infantry because I wanted to be a paratrooper. And I figured my best chance of being a paratrooper was being in the infantry.
So what was your training like?
Great. I had more fun. I got in more trouble training for laughing than we just had a good time. You can't take it serious. You got to have fun. Going through jump school, I'll never forget. Sergeant Roberts was a huge, big black guy, shoulders that were so wide you probably couldn't get through a door, waist about a 32-inch. And there was a young kid in front of me, straight off the farm, and on the tower week where you jump out of the 34-foot towers, Jones was in front of me, and he gave him instructions. Jones, stand in the door and look at the sergeant on the ground, state your name and tower number. So Jones did that, and then he jumped. Roberts just chewed his ass a hole down the cable. You don't jump till I tell you anyway. So I, did my thing and followed him up to get my critique, and he was getting his, and he's getting chewed out again. You know what you're supposed to do. Yes, sir. And he went on back up in the towers. Okay. Robert said, "You understand what you're supposed to do?" I said, "Yes, Sergeant." I'm getting hooked up at that time. Okay, stand in the door, state your name and tower number, and then look straight ahead. Jones, 376, and jumped again. And I mean, I'm laughing. The third time up, I was on my knees. I was laughing so hard. And Roberts took care of it that time. But we just had a lot of fun. I mean, things we did that we shouldn't have done, but had a good time.
Yeah. So what was your first assignment after your training?
I went to the 5th Infantry Division at Fort Carson, Colorado, and made a mistake of being a bachelor, nothing going on at night. So I started teaching the Dad's Club rifle team, and we went on Operation, I forgot what the name of it. Anyway, went down to Coronado on amphibious training. And when I came back, the old man called me in the office and he said, I understand you used to shoot on the rifle team. He said, sir, you still do it? I said, no, I'm going to make the Army a career, so I don't want to get involved with the rifle teams again. Well, the division rifle matches start tomorrow. I want you to go down and draw a rifle, go out to the range and zero it, and shoot in the matches tomorrow. And I said, no, I don't want to do that, because if I do any good, they're going to move me over to the MTU, the Marksmanship Training Unit. And I said, I don't do that. Make the Army a career. And he said, no, I won't let them do that, but I want you to. So I got a rifle and went out to the range and looked at the scope that was going to be shot the next day. The first match was individual. I said, okay, what I'll do is come back tomorrow and I'll zero as I'm going through the individual match. And so I won't do any good. And maybe by that time I can help the team a little bit. So I did, and we did for 3 days of shooting. And the day of the award ceremony, the general came down, they uncovered the deal, and I had won the match, individual. And he did put his hand on the board, and he said, these top 10 guys will go to the Marksmanship Training Unit. And I looked over at my battalion commander, and he went. So I ended up shooting on the 5th Division team and got picked up on the 5th Army team, and then got picked up on the All-Army team. And then the international team started talking to me about going to the 64 Olympics. And I said, hey guys. So I volunteered to go to Vietnam, and being a second lieutenant, they sent me to Korea.
Of course.
So I spent my first.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Well, they didn't want to send a butter bar to. So I got to go to Korea. And of course, when I got there, I'm in charge of the 7th Division Rifle Team and the 7th Division Pistol Team and all the train fire ranges. Couldn't get away from it.
Wow. So how long did all this go on?
Oh, gee. What, 3 years, 2 years? I don't know. Meanwhile, while I was in Korea, I started skydiving, and I was enjoying that until I got hurt. And then I thought, I had passed all the tests and got everything together to go to flight school. So I think I'm going to go to flight school. Surely I figured they were going to put me in charge of an aerial gunnery range, because but luckily I got to fly. And they sent me to Mother Rucker and Fort Rucker, I'm sorry.
Right.
Sent me to Fort Rucker, and they had a basic training unit there at one time, and I was the executive officer of the company. And finally, after many phone calls to officer assignments, I finally talked them into sending me to fixed wing school first. So I got to do that, go to fixed wing school.
And why did you want to do that first?
I didn't want to fly helicopters.
Oh, not at all.
Not at all.
Interesting.
Which is another funny story. When I got ready to leave Vietnam, I was able to finagle a call to officer assignments. And I can picture it in my own mind. A young second lieutenant answered the phone. He said, Captain, what can I do for you? And I said, I want to go. I want to know what you're going to do with me. I'm getting ready to leave Vietnam, and I want to know where you're going to send me. Well, wait a minute. Let me check. And the next thing I picture is an overweight female first sergeant. She didn't say hi or anything. She picked up the phone and she says, Captain, you're going to rotor wing transition. I said, ma'am, you don't understand. I don't want to fly helicopters. She said, no, Captain, you don't understand. You either turn in your wings or go. And I said, what's my class date? So I went back and went to rotor wing transition, and of course went back to Vietnam flying helicopters.
All right. So what did you fly first? What was the fixed wing aircraft you flew?
I flew as a forward air controller flying 01 Bird Dog, L-19s most people call it. Mm-hmm. So I spent my first tour as a forward air controller.
Mm-hmm. And that was a full year.
It was
a very full year.
Yeah, it was.
And then on your second tour?
Second tour, I went back flying helicopters. And of course, I started out up in Pleiku as I controlled all the helicopters, and this 2 Corps guys would send in, companies would send in their requests and what they need for helicopters, and I would look at the number of available helicopters and assign, different things for a little while. And then they sent me down to band me to it to be the commander of the 155th Assault Helicopter Company. And the battalion commander talked to me the night before. He sent me up there and he said, "Don't do anything, something's happening." And so I said, "Okay." Next day he came back and he said, "Well, they decided to deactivate the 155th. So I want you to go back to group headquarters, 1st Aviation Battalion, or 1st Aviation Group, and get another job." So I went back up there and I was a deputy post commander. So, I got to fly when I got to fly.
Right. And flying Hueys?
Flying Hueys.
And so obviously you served in a combat role. Is there anything you can tell us about that was of particular interest during that time, or was it all of particular interest?
Terrifying.
Yes.
It was very interesting. When I first got to Vietnam, they told us, "You won't probably fly a combat mission for 6 weeks. We'll have to do in-country checkouts. We'll have to do, find out where the artillery units are, and so on and so on." So the first night I'm getting unpacked, and the operations officer comes down and he said, "Joe, you want to fly a mission tomorrow?" And I said, "Sure." Thinking I was going to get my check ride.
Yeah.
I went down. He said, "Come on down and I'll show you what we're doing." So I went down to the operations tent and had a big map on the wall. And he said, "We're having an operation right here, and you're right here. I want you to fly up and take care of that operation." And I said, "Yeah, I had met my in-country checkout." "Yeah, no matter, go fly it. Here's all your radio call signs and stuff to people you need to talk to." So I got my first air medal in 3 days.
Oh my goodness.
So I was in combat that day, the second day I got there.
Now were you flying slicks?
No, bird dogs.
Okay. Oh, that was
My first
fixed
bird.
wing.
Yeah, my
Okay.
first bird.
And so by the time you got to flying Hueys, then you were a deputy commander, and so you didn't get to fly as much as.
I was a senior major at that time, and I flew, ash and trash missions when I could get a helicopter when I wanted. And 1st Aviation Brigade Commander, of course, was a big shot. He controlled all the airplanes. His aircraft was number 555, so everybody called it Triple Nickel. Mm-hmm. And I'd get his airplane or his helicopter. And I remember the first time I flew up to Pleiku, I called him and said, "This is Triple Nickel coming in." And I landed on the hot spot. Every senior officer in the post was standing out there waiting. And I got out of the airplane and looked at them, and they said, "Where's the old man?" I said, "No, it's me. Don't you ever come in here again and tell us." So I've had a couple of deals like that.
Yeah. So you couldn't be Triple Nickel.
I could be Triple Nickel, but I had to tell them I didn't have a code aboard.
Okay.
I forgot to do that. Of course,
Oops.
I did that a couple of times when I was down at Fort Rucker. We'd have to get our flight time. And one time I was flying a Baron, a twin-engine Baron. There's a bunch of us just going out for getting our time in. And I flew into Navy Softly down in Florida on the coast. I was a captain then. I just called him and said, "Hey, this is Captain Swift, and is there a way you can send a car down to pick us up, take us to the Officers Club for dinner?" "Yes, sir, we take care of it." Not thinking I'm a Army captain going into a Navy base. Their captains were birds.
Oh.
And I got talked to that time too, Yeah, I did a few things.
Yeah. That was kind of a whoops.
I had fun. I mean, when you're scared to death every day, and you got to have You got to put your own fun in there sometimes.
All right. Well, let me back up a little bit. How long were you in Korea?
13 months.
13 months in Korea and 2 tours in Vietnam. And how did those tours line up? One after another, or was there a gap in between?
Well, there was partial gaps. Of course, when I was in Korea, I had to go back and go to flight school. And that took 9 months or whatever it was. And after my first tour in Vietnam, I had to go to rotary wing transition. And I had I guess I went to the infantry officer advanced course at that time. Someplace in there I had a company for a year at Fort Rooker. I had the headquarters company. That was fun too. I was thinking about that this morning, come to think of it. My office was, you know, when you have people in jail, you got to visit them once a month.
Okay.
And I had a nice office. I had a big black first sergeant who was just super guy. And my executive officer was a big guy who had played football at Alabama with Joe Namath. And he was a character. Anyway, I would get an airplane or a helicopter and fly from, I guess it was after Rotary Wing. Anyway, I'd get an airplane to fly up to Fort Benning and visit with my prisoners. I only had one. The guy I had up there was just as nice. I mean, he was a super individual, really, but he was an old country boy, you know. Mm-hmm. And then about, I don't know, 3 or 4 days later, his wife would come in to visit to find out how he was doing. And I'm 82 years old, and I've seen some beautiful women. His wife was knocked down gorgeous. I mean, she was a little bitty thing. She was so pretty, but I had my desk, and across there was a couch, and then next to it was a door that led into the orderly room. And she would come in her nice little mini skirts, and they would escort her in. And so-and-so's wife is here. Oh, okay, have a seat. And then they'd shut the door. God, you can't do that.
Right.
It's just, so it was, and this went on for several months. I'd have to ease over and, nonchalantly open the door.
Right.
And one day, I thought, something's going on here. They brought her in. She sat down, but I didn't go back to my desk. I waited for a couple of seconds, a couple of minutes, and jerked the door open, and they're sitting there with the watches, and they're betting how long it's going to take me to open the door. So, we had a little talk about that. We had some fun. We had a lot of fun.
So you were actually being paid back for some of your own.
I could tell you stories. I could tell you some stories. 31 years, I have some stories.
Yeah, I imagine so. And so were you married or in a relationship during the time that you served?
Yes. No. Not in Korea.
Would you clarify, please?
Yeah. Not in Korea.
Okay.
I got married after Korea.
Okay.
So I was married my first 2 tours in Vietnam.
All right.
That didn't work out well.
Okay.
Yeah. You can't go through what we went through and not be changed.
Sure.
Not be a different person when you come home. Mm-hmm. So I'm convinced that I messed up the first one because I just wasn't the right person when I came home.
Right.
And, so anyway, yeah, I was married.
Mm-hmm. And did you lose anyone close to you while you were in the service?
I tried not, and they tell you, try not to get real close to people. Yeah, I had some good friends. Unfortunately, I lost 2 of my observers my first tour. I went on R&R, and I had a guy named Autolet, a Chief Warrant Officer Autolet, who was from the 101st Air, no, 173rd Airborne, or maybe it's one, I don't remember. But anyway, he used to fly a mission every week, and he had specific areas he wanted to look at and check out. And while I was gone, one of my flight school classmates flew that mission for me, and he got killed, crashed, and killed both my friend and my observer. And then my replacement was assigned to me up at when I was up at Quin Yon. Another captain came in. I had super people working for me. I had 6 guys, 6 pilots working for me. They were just absolutely super guys. Couldn't ask for a better crew until my replacement came in, and we had a night mission we had to fly, and the only way we could eat was to go off of our compound over to the hospital compound for dinner or for any of the shows they had. And of course, they were one gate and another gate, so if we had an alert, you couldn't get from one to the other. And my replacement, although he was married with 3 children, found him a nurse friend, and he wanted to stay over there all the time. I said, no, you can't do that. We've got, anyway, long story. We didn't get along too well, but anyway, I was less than 30 days in country when I was at the desk one day. I had a mission to fly that morning, and my sergeant said, you need to stay and write some efficiency report. You've got, you're less than 30 days, and you need to do some efficiency reports. And I said, yeah, I do, but I don't have time. I got this mission. And then my replacement said, you're a chicken. I'll fly your mission for you. Well, he crashed someplace with my other observer, and I had to identify the charred body, So I went to a lot of memorable services, to the point now I won't go to funerals anymore. I don't go to funerals.
You mentioned that you can't go through that those experiences without being changed. How did they change you?
Obviously, I don't know how I changed. I just, I did. When you come home with PTSD, there's just absolutely another story with that. You have anger problems. You have flashback problems. There's this thing, and I've been so lucky to be married to this young lady I'm married to now.
Yeah.
We went through counseling, and she knows how to handle it.
Yeah.
I'm still a horse's ass a lot, and I mistreat her, not physically, but I'm not nice to her sometimes.
Right.
But at least she understands.
And how did you meet this woman who knows how to handle that horse's ass?
I met her in junior high.
Is that
we went
so?
through junior high, went through high school together. She wouldn't date me because she was dating a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
And then we met at our 40th high school reunion. Neither of us were married.
Really?
And I told her that night we were getting married. And that was a fight. She lived in Atlanta, and I lived here, and called her every day, emailed 1,400 emails. And I kept telling her, we're going to get, and she kept saying, we really don't know each other. And I said, I don't care. We're getting married.
Yeah.
And that was, I don't know, about 6 months later, I called her and I said, "You remember the movie An Officer and a Gentleman?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm coming to Atlanta next month and I'm going to physically carry you out of your business if you don't agree to marry me." So she reluctantly agreed. And I had to get her approval from her 3 children before we could do that.
Okay.
But we did.
And did you have children from your first marriage as well?
No,
Okay.
no, my first marriage didn't. That
So
wasn't pleasant.
you have three stepchildren.
Yeah, I have one of my own now from my second marriage.
Okay.
And he's 40 something.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, we got three stepchildren
And 3.
that
So,
we never get to see.
right. Because they're, yeah,
They're in other countries.
right.
But you know, the guys that go through PTSD, you just they need to understand. I'll tell you another story. You can cut
Okay.
this out if you want to. My daughter is a PhD in developmental psychology. Works for CDC, and they made her in charge of their annual convention, and it was in Honolulu. And she had a 3-month-old, and she said, "I'll pay for it if you guys will go and babysit while I'm in my session." So obviously we jumped on that.
Yeah.
One day she came in and she said, "They're having a session on PTSD. Would you like to go?" And I'd love to. I'd like to see her. You're not a member, so you got to keep your mouth shut. Okay. So we went to this, Betty and I, my wife and I went to this. And there was, I don't know, 100 people in there. And the head guy from the VA that was in charge of mental health he gave us a briefing about 45 minutes on PTSD. And then there was 2 other speakers that were from universities that were studying. And when he got done, he said, "Is there any questions?" And I had to. And I stuck my hand up, and he said, "Yes, sir." And I said, "I really appreciate what you're doing to the troops coming home from Afghanistan and you know, the Mideast over there. You know, you meet them at the airplanes, you call them heroes, you give them fruit baskets, and on and on and on." I didn't get that when I came home from Vietnam. As a matter of fact, it was a lot worse than that. But I said, "What are you doing about that?" And he said, "Honestly, we don't know how to handle the older generation. We don't know how to handle Korea, World War II, Vietnam. We're delving with it now." And I said, "Does that mean you're just waiting around for us to die?" And he took a deep breath and he said, "That's kind of the way it is."
Wow.
And I thought, that's a hell of a thing to tell somebody that's got PTSD.
Right.
And people have PTSD from having car wrecks.
Sure.
And something needs to be done to deal with these folks.
Yes.
Try to touch their life in some way. But I went to counseling here for a long time, and it was mostly complaining about the VA. And so I said, "Man."
Like group counseling, or
Yeah.
okay. So everybody sat around and complained about how bad the VA
there was 12
was.
of us.
Right.
They kept it to 12.
Right.
And then we'd sit around. It was, and that's where I got my wife involved. She went to counseling first. We had individual counseling first, her, and then of course me. And then I went into a group, and that part was good. Tried to work on my anger management. I'm still not good at it, but I try.
So, how did you overcome the stigma of going to counseling? Because your generation is not one that sees counseling as just kind of the what people do, like the generations today. It was seen as a weakness. So how did you overcome that perception and make the decision to
I
go to
don't know
counseling?
that I did. I don't know that I ever overcome that stigma.
The guys and some gals that came back from Vietnam who struggle to this day, what would you say to them? What would you tell them to do to help them to deal with?
I'm not sure I know. I'm not sure anybody knows, but you know, you got to put your faith in God,
Yes.
and you just got to, I don't know, do what you got. I know when I'm driving, it just gets, and I have to turn on the radio. My wife doesn't like the radio on in the car, but I have to turn it on. It's the only way I can soothe my nerves enough to handle driving. But you know, you got to have a partner that understands,
Yes.
and you got to have somebody you can lean on
Yes.
and talk to, and will hold your hand when you're having a nightmare.
Yes.
You know, you got to lean on somebody else. Hopefully, they understand.
Yeah. And not just 12 guys who are sitting in a
Right.
room
Complaining
about the VA. Yeah.
The VA.
Right.
Which,
One thing that you mentioned was your faith in God. So, what role do you think that played? Your faith.
oh, it's 100%. I mean, you just got to do that. You got, like I told you, my first night, you know, when I had to fly that mission the next day when I wasn't prepared. And after getting shot at, I'm new in country. I just got here yesterday, and I'm out there getting shot at. And I got home at night, and I was shaking like a leaf. I was scared to death, and I just had to do that. I had to make, and finally, I just told God, "You do with me what you want to do."
Yeah.
But let me get out there and help those guys on the ground. They're the guys who need the help. But I'll just have to let you do what you want to do with me and let it go.
Yes.
But there wasn't, there were several nights I go back and say, God, do you remember that plan we had? Got a little close today.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what year did you leave Vietnam the final time?
70, that was 68, 70, 70, 71.
Okay. And what did you do after that?
I went to, where'd I go? Fort Lewis? What? No, I don't remember what I did. I know,
Stayed in the Army. We know that.
I did. I went up to Fort Lewis, I think. I spent the rest of my time at Fort Lewis, retired in 94.
So, the entire time you were at Fort Lewis?
I'm sorry?
The entire time after you left Vietnam, you were at Fort Lewis?
No, I don't remember what I did.
Well, what were your jobs?
I got sent home to get infantry qualified because I'd been a pilot all this time.
Right.
So they sent me to Fort Lewis. No, after I got out of Vietnam, I went to Europe. I was in Europe for 4 years. I spent 4 years in another interesting job. I was in the European Command Center as one of the duty officers controlling all of the nuclear weapons in Europe. We had exercise the system once a day, once a tour. You know, our tour duty was 8 hours, of course. Work first day you go from 8 in the morning to 5 in the afternoon, and then the next 3 days you go from 5 in the afternoon to midnight, and you know that sort of stuff. And every 3 days you get 3 days off, or every 6 days you get 3 days off. But That was an interesting job. That was, I had a cosmic top secret atomo with a special intelligence attachment security clearance.
That sounds pretty significant.
Yeah, I could go in any facility, headquarters, and get into their top secret documents. But normally you can't look at a top secret or a classified document unless you have a need to know.
Right.
But I could look at any of them. I had to go to Navier over in London about once a month to talk to those people. That was a fun job.
Now, what year did you marry your wife, Betty? What year?
Which
was
wife?
that?
Betty?
Betty.
1999.
So this was after you retired?
No. Well, yeah. Yeah, it was.
Okay.
Yeah, she...
So it wasn't the uniform that won her over.
No. She had to put up with me.
The whole officer and a gentleman image was you were in civilian clothes. That was the only difference.
Well, after I came home from Vietnam, it was probably just an officer.
Oh, I see.
I
Okay.
don't know if I was much of a gentleman or not.
Right. And you certainly weren't in uniform.
No.
Didn't look like Richard Gere.
All my uniforms shrunk for something.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
I've experienced that.
Yeah.
I've had the same problem. So, what kind of challenges did your being away from home create for you and for the family that you left behind? You mentioned your parents earlier. What kind of challenges did that create for them?
I was an only child, so it really created a problem with my parents. So we were so close.
Yeah.
My parents and I had double dated.
Really?
Yeah, we had a lot of. It was just a great relationship with my parents, and it, but although it broke my mother's heart, I'll support you.
Yes.
And I made sure while I was in Vietnam, I wrote her every day.
Wow.
Maybe I just said it was a tough day, but I'm okay.
Yeah.
But I made sure they heard from me every day.
And how long did you serve? How many years did you serve in total?
31.
31 years. And your rank as when you retired was a
06 or full colonel.
full colonel. Mm-hmm. Were you satisfied with that?
No. I could have gone higher.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I tried to go back
Did you?
for Desert Storm. I
Yeah.
volunteered. They told me my rank was too high. I think what they meant, you're too old.
Yeah. But that was polite.
That was a
anyway.
polite
yeah,
way to
yeah.
do it, yeah.
So they could have been insulting, but they weren't.
Yeah, exactly.
Did I see a combat infantry badge on your wall over there?
You did, but don't ask about that.
Okay. But you've received a combat infantry badge?
I did,
Okay.
but I was a pilot.
That's interesting.
Don't ask.
I understand. I understand. What other medals or citations did you receive that are significant to you?
Well, obviously the top that I've got is a Distinguished Flying Cross. First one was we had an artillery battery overrun, and it was my night to fly. We had a 400-foot overcast, and I flew out to these people and worked with them until we were able to settle things down. It was interesting. I was flying with the AC-47 gunships. Mm-hmm. And of course, they were way up over the overcast, and but I needed illumination. So I asked the guy, I said, just drop a flare, and I'll try to adjust it once it comes through the overcast. God, was that a mistake? But it lit up the world.
Yeah.
And that was another night I had kind of a run-in with Dust Off. I've had a couple of run-ins with Dust Off, the medevacer.
Yeah, yeah.
I called for Dust Off, and they said, battery's still being hit. I said, yeah, but I need, they got people ever need help. I was working with a gunship team that I'd worked with many times before. They didn't go by their company call sign. They went by Robin Hood's call. I was working with Falstaff, and I forgot the other one that night. It was a light fire team. And I called, when Dust Off couldn't help me, I called Falstaff. I said, I need help. What can I do? And he said, don't sweat it. We'll take care of it. I watched these guys go into a hot area, drop their rockets, strip the rounds out of their machine gun, and pick up wounded.
Wow.
I could not believe it. Both of them did it more than once. More than one trip into it. Fantastic people to work with. Just, you couldn't ask for it. Anyway, what I was leading up to when I landed, after 4 hours of flight, which is what's restricted 3 hours, but after 4 hours, I landed with a battery that was boiling over on the floor, and the DeVarty commander came out, pinned that horde on, and then told his aide to write it up.
Wow.
So that was kind of significant.
That's pretty significant.
And then I got another one, my second one, during Tet, when we were overrun. Dumb stunt there, but Tuiwa North was an airfield that was north of where I was flying. And didn't know, but they had been totally surrounded.
Mm-hmm.
And I, dumbass, would go in and shoot rockets at these guys. And I figured, what the hell, go all the way back to my home base to rearm? Yeah. So I just land here at 281 North. So I'd land there and rearm with the engine running.
Yeah.
And the place was surrounded. So that was fun.
Yeah.
But, you do dumb things when you're young.
What's the, and which brings to mind, what's the line between a dumb move and a hero?
I don't know.
I don't know.
And it's so many times you just do something because those guys need help.
Yeah.
And you don't think about it until that night when you get back. Golly, what have I done?
Right.
And you're shaking like a leaf, and you're scared, and you think, I'll never do that again.
And then you go and do it again.
Every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really funny. I was working with the SEALs and the river patrol boats down in the Delta one time, and they called me and said, at a certain coordinate, we're getting ambushed regularly. Can you look at this? I said, sure. So I flew down. It was on the river for the river patrol boats. Mm-hmm. So I was flying down the river at about 3 feet off the water, maybe. And when I got to this area, I don't know if you're familiar with WD-1 Comowar, but it's about the thickness, diameter of a pencil, lead, wooden pencil, the lead in it, it's about that diameter. And it's got 2 strands of stainless steel for support and 2 strands of copper, and then they use it for communication. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know if they were using it, if the VC were using it for communication or for a trap, but there was 4 strands of this stuff wrapped across the river that I ran through. Anytime I flew that low, I always carried a little bit extra power, so it turned me 90 degrees into the trees and staggered out, and airplane felt okay, flew okay, but I was close to home. I said, maybe I better go home and check it out. Mm-hmm. So I landed and taxied into my parking area, shut down, took my helmet off, my sunglasses off, and backed out of the airplane. My crew chief from Perryton, Texas, redheaded, freckles all over him, was standing there with his shirt off, with his hands on his hips, and he said, "God damn it, Captain, what'd you do to my airplane?" Now, I spent 31 years in the service. I've never had an ass chewing like I got that day. And I couldn't do anything. Just say, "Yeah, Mike, you're right." You know,
Well, those crew chiefs are pretty possessive.
well, it's his airplane, you know.
Yeah, right.
And the bad thing was about 2 weeks later, I brought it back with banana leaves hanging all in it too.
Oh, gosh.
Well, it hit a banana tree. But Mike and I still correspond. He lives in Surprise, Arizona, and we still email and talk and everything. Great guy, saved my life, took care of me.
Yeah.
Could never want for anything more.
Who that you served with was an influence on you?
There was a lot of guys. I had a colonel in Europe that I worked for. He gave me an assignment, and I royally screwed it up. I really made a mess of it. And he called me in the office and he said, "What happened?" I said, "I don't know. I just messed." He said, "Well," and it was for another division. So he called the colonel over there. He said, "Yeah, we messed up over here. We did this. We did that." He didn't say me. And he said, "Come on, let's go talk to him and see what we can do." We went over and we looked at him. He took all the blame. And I'll never forget, you know, he supported me on that. And I was very impressed with that. And I had a lot of people that impressed me, a lot of people. One guy, Sergeant Dixon, when I was at ROTC, he was an interesting guy. We used to always invite him to our parties because he was a great bartender. But Sergeant Dixon served in Korea. And when it came time for him to go home, they sent him down to, the boat team terminal. He passed out all his paperwork to go home. And then he had to wait for, a week or something before the boat left. So he said, "Can I go back to my unit? Or at least I know people up there." And, they let him go back to his unit. He's got a steel jacket on with all his paperwork in it. And while he's with the unit, they got hit. And they got really battered hard. And Dixon grabbed a rifle and jumped in the foxhole. And the guy in the next foxhole got hit bad. So Dixon crawled over and wrapped him up in his steel jacket and took care of him. Anyway, the unit was captured. Dixon was captured. And went to prison camp. Unfortunately, the guy in the foxhole next to him died and had all Dixon's paperwork. So they notified his wife that he had been killed in action. So after his incarceration was over, he got released and went home, and his wife had remarried, collected all his insurance.
Oh, my goodness.
You probably don't want to put this on there because there are other guys are going to hear that.
Yeah.
But anyway, he was remarried, really a nice lady, but he could no longer get insurance, and she just had to understand that.
Yeah. Wow.
But neat people. I mean, just
yeah.
pass that stuff over, and it's part of life.
But go back to that the commander who took the hit for your mistake, whatever that was. That defines leadership.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And your troops will respect you from day one. And I made sure all of my troops came first. I always took care of my troops. I had a sergeant when I first went up to Fort Carson. that did that. I said, Sergeant, I've been in the Army all day and I need help. I need all the help you can give me. He said, Lieutenant, since you said that, he said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll run your platoon through you. When things happen, I'll tell you what to do. And we did that. And we did that for a long time. Then we went on Operation Cherry Tree down in South Carolina, where the 5th Division and the 2nd Division were on the ground, and the 101st and the 82nd parachuted in on us. And we spent 6 weeks just roaming through people's yards and through pastures and through fields, and we ate, anything we could find, and it was really interesting. Go 6 weeks in South Carolina without a shower, though. But anyway, he would tell me, the old man would call and say, come to the front, we got to do. We'd go up, and on the way back to the unit, he'd say, this is what I do. One day I got a call, hey, Sergeant, let's go. And he said, no, Lieutenant, it's your platoon, you run it. So you run into guys like that really set you up for your career and tell you which way you need to go. Just really, there's so many people you run into that are inspirations. Run into the others that go the other direction.
Right. Right. There's some that are less inspirational. So is there anything that reminds you of your service? Sights, smells, sounds, tastes?
Constantly. I work at the Frontiers of Flight Museum.
Right.
Jet fuel.
Yeah.
Diesel fuel. I mention it to my wife every once in a while. Things remind me. Situations, loud noises, crowds, those kind of things.
Music?
Yeah. I never liked the go-go dancers and all that. I never went to those shows. They turned me off. But yeah, there's some music that I've tended to fall back on old country gospels now. It's about the main thing I listen to. But there's also some other people. I never got to see these shows, Bob Hope and all this. I never got to see it. I was always out in the sticks.
Yeah.
But Ann Margaret is one person that, along with Phyllis Diller, are the two people that probably deserve the most respect from all the troops. Ann Margaret will stop anything to talk to a vet.
Is that right?
Yeah, she's really supports the vets.
Now, are you involved with any veterans organizations presently?
I joined them all,
Yeah.
but the only one that's ever done me a bit of good was the DAV.
Okay.
It's only they supported me through all of my trying to get disability and stuff. They supported me all the way through that. But the others have not done anything to help other than send magazines, which sometimes I can't read because of the stories, get too close.
Yeah. So tell me about what you have done since you left the military.
I won't go there. I went to work for Aerospatiale Helicopter Corporation.
Yes.
As a reliability engineer. I did all of the tracking of all of the failures and the discrepancy stuff for the first 8 years, and then they made me manager of 53 service stations and service centers throughout the United States and Canada that did maintenance on our aircraft. And worked for them for 14 years, and then I went to Bell Helicopter for 2 years, I guess. I worked on the AH-1W. My main job was counting rivets in the tail boom. Worked over there for a while, then went back to Aerospatiale, which was then American Helicopter, American Eurocopter. I worked in their spares department and got an offer back to Bell, so I went back to Bell working on the 609, which was a civilian tilt rotor, and then I went over and started working on the V-22. Went out to Amarillo and played with it, and one thing and another, which was an interesting, beautiful aircraft. But
Did you get to fly it?
they wouldn't let me even get on the simulator. And I kept telling them, you know, I'm a dual-rated
I've done both.
I'm a dual-rated aviator. I can fly helicopters and can fly fixed wing. Now, tell me how I get that thing off the ground. Do I have a collective and a cyclic to put it up, and then do I turn everything loose and go to a yoke or what? Yeah. So I finally talked to the test pilot. He told me how to fly the things, but that's as close.
That's as far as it got, huh?
Yeah.
Just not even the simulator.
Yeah, I wouldn't even let me in the simulator. Wouldn't even let me look in the simulator. If I could just look and see what the handles look like, you know?
Right. I was all anxious to hear about how the Osprey flew. That's
Yeah, I just wanna
because I
know.
don't get it.
Yeah, how do I transition from helicopter to fixed wing?
That's right. That's right. Oh gosh. So, if you had the opportunity to live your life all over again, would you do it the same
In
way?
a minute.
Would you?
In a minute.
In spite of it all?
In a minute. And the only reason is, unfortunately, we studied this in church and there's not been a day in history when people weren't fighting.
Right.
So if I could stop fighting, that's one thing. But there's going to be fighting,
Yeah.
and I want to be there to help the guys.
Right.
You know, I had some fantastic guys that I worked with.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be there to support them.
So what advice do you have for young people entering the military today, either through the Cadet Corps or just enlisting in the service? What advice do you have to offer?
I would highly recommend it. I think it's a great career, good educational benefits, good retirement benefits, and good, you know, they take care of you at the end. Had I had to do it over again, I probably would have gone to the Air Force. Could fly more high performance airplanes, but definitely go back then.
Get to work with high caliber people like myself.
Absolutely. You got people on the, you know, there's people on the bottom end.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Is there anything that you would like to add to this interview that I have not asked you?
You pretty well covered it. You know, like I say, I've got stories I could tell, things I could tell, enjoyable things that were fun. You know, we used to, when I was in Europe, we had our team that we worked with. You know, I had my NCO over there with his gun and me over here, and I had two people on radio consoles. And every once in a while, we'd just say, the hell with it. We'd all meet at the officers club, and we'd take them in the officers club. You know, you just get to be close, family close. You know.
Right.
Unfortunately, I've had some friends come through that were still in the service that have come to visit. We couldn't talk. We were in different worlds.
Yeah.
And it's that way right now. I told my wife, you know, we go to church and we listen to all of the sermons and everything, but I'm kind of running a parallel life here because that's the way it's supposed to be, but that's not the way I lived it, you know.
Well, I want to thank you for your time, for your transparency. This project is important for a number of reasons, but one of the reasons that I think that it is most important is to get the experiences of veterans like you documented so that people understand that they're not alone. And so I appreciate your honesty and your transparency and telling us the real story and not
As I saw it.
as you saw it, of course. But that's what we wanted.
I appreciate your endeavors and what you're doing. I don't know, and I don't know that everybody will understand anyway. You know, even my wife said, I can't understand what you went through. You know, it's sometimes I think I can't understand what I did, and I can't understand why I did. You know, I jump qualified my monkey in Vietnam. I figured if he worked with me, he needs to be a parachutist too.
I'm sorry, you never mentioned a monkey
Oh
in this.
God, yeah. See, like I told you, we can. One of those stupid things where my crew chief, I had two crew chiefs. I had another pilot with me. They wanted to go to the big PX in Saigon. So what the hell? You can't fly into Tan Son Nhut. That is just almost impossible to fly in there. So I said, let's drive. So we drove from where I was in the Delta all the way up to the PX. Well, you couldn't take your weapons in the PX. So I said, okay, you guys go and I'll sit out here in the Jeep with the weapons. And when you get done, come in, I'll go in for a while. I did. And when I came back out, my crew chief sitting there with a damn monkey. I said, where the hell did you get that monkey? And he said, I traded my Zippo for him. I said, now what am I going to do with this monkey? Well, it became our unit monkey. We also had a dog. Shotgun was the dog, and they get along. It was really funny. They play together and everything. But that monkey knew exactly how long that dog's chain was. Dog would be out there taking a nap in the afternoon, and the monkey would go up and start screwing with him. And the dog would jump up and start running, and the monkey would run about that far for longer than that chain. But anyway, we decided one day we needed to jump qualify the monkey. So I pulled a parachute out of a flare, tied it all up, told the guys, okay, the Air Force guys are out there, and I said, look, monkey's not going to be happy, so don't grab him when he comes down. Just when he runs by, we'll make a circle out there, and as he runs by, we'll catch the parachute and let him settle down. Well, he wasn't happy. He squealed and screamed all the way down. He hit the ground. He came up with his hands up like that and started screeching, looking around. Then he started running. He ran right between me and the Air Force Major. And Major Brown reached down, grabbed the parachute, was holding it. The monkey just ran around behind him and bit him on the leg. It's kind of funny, you know, but monkey didn't want to go to the airport anymore after that. So. Yeah, we had fun with the monkey, the dog.
Oh, yeah. So, but the monkey was jump qualified.
Yeah, he was jump qualified.
Did he get jump wings?
He only jumped once. He only had to jump.
Oh, he only had to jump once.
We couldn't get him to the airport after that. He wouldn't go.
Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for having us in your home. Thank you for participating in this project. We appreciate it so much. And that'll be the end.
Well, thank you very much.